Okay, shalom. So practical is at one point during the class, everybody should sign in and with their email. If you haven't put your email on it ever, so it's helpful, and I'll photograph it and I can send out a mailing once in a while, not very often. And like I did send a mailing out last week, and everybody here got one?
No, because I wasn't here.
Okay. No, there's a special clipboard. Oh. There's a clipboard already. Sorry. You don't have to start another.
If we're already on the list, we still need to sign or not?
No, you don't need to sign if you're already on the list. Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Okay, so you could put at the top of these pages that I gave you, it's a list of terms. I can call it GEULAH terms. GEULAH terms. The terms that you have to be familiar with in order to swim the waters that we're going to swim in. So, and also this week we have a copy of this, a few copies of this book, the book itself in English, and we'll be looking at it, learning how to use it. There's a history to this book. I'll give you a little bit of the history. It's kind of important to know. It's maybe a chapter of our history that is not well known, not as well known as it should be. It goes back. One of the main characters is the Gaon of Vilna, someone who people think they know a lot about, but really probably know very little about. He was very much of a visionary, and he was born in 1720, and so he lived for most of the 1700s. The story goes that this is written by Reb Hillel Rivlin, sometimes called Riblis, of Shklov. Rabbi Hillel Rivlin of Shklov. Shklov was a kind of a famous center, especially when Reb Binyamin Rivlin, the father of Hillel, came into money and built a yeshiva. Everything that was learned there was learned according to the teachings of the Gra. The Gaon of Vilna was a master of Torah who set out a program for how to learn Torah, which included all aspects of Torah. There's certain things I'm not sure about exactly how to say them. So I'm kind of have to be careful. I don't want to say anything that's misleading. But as I mentioned last week, he asked one of his students to translate Euclid, which is geometry. And according to the Kol HaTorah, a whole chapter in here called the Shar Be'er Sheva, the gate of the seven, of the well of seven, the gate of the well of seven, or the seventh well. And the well of seven is the seven wisdoms of the world, and they're listed in here. And so the whole teaching is that you can't really understand or appreciate or comprehend or the in-depth of what the Torah is about, and that's without the seven wisdoms being the handmaids of the Torah. Music, astronomy, engineering, mathematics, various different things, which are the famous 7 wisdoms of antiquity. So the Gaon of Vilna held that that was very important for the understanding of Torah and for the understanding of how to sanctify the name of Hashem among the nations of the world. Therefore, some of the first Talmidim of the Talmidim, some of the first students of the Gaon of Vilna who came to Yerushalayim set up a yeshiva called Shar Bar Sheva, the gate of the 7, of the well of 7. But it was closed down because the sages of Yerushalayim made a takana, a decree, that secular subjects should not be learned in Jerusalem. They had a reason. It doesn't apply to the rest of Eretz Israel. It's a little bit more than I want to go into now to explain what their reasoning was. But just the idea that the span of the knowledge that the Gaon of Vilna was trying to put forth, to give and the students was the Torah at the center, all aspects of the Torah, from the simple up to the sublime, and then the entire system of wisdom that we have, that is, much of it is in the Talmud, but whatever mankind has, he was not in favor of philosophy, but he was in favor of wisdom. And wherever wisdom is found, it's wisdom. Whether it's the wisdom of psychology, which in the Kol HaTorah in Hebrew is called Kohot HaNefesh, the powers of the soul, the 70 powers of the soul. Whatever the case, the span or the desire of the Gaon of Vilna was to learn the entire Torah. He was a master mathematician himself. He wrote a book on geometry himself, or maybe it was, I don't know if it's geometry, but it's certainly mathematics. He held that all of this was in order to prepare for the Messianic age, and that we have to take an active part in doing that. So let me order my thoughts here. Get back to what I was trying to say a few seconds ago. Binyamin Rivlin, the father of Hillel, became very, very wealthy. He came to the Gaon of Vilna with a dream that he had. The Gaon of Vilna translated the dream for him and said that you have to be the one now who's going to start the Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael, the ascent to Eretz Yisrael. You're going to train people, and the system is going to be called Chazon Sion, the vision of Zion, which is, in other words, the fulfillment of the prophecies of the prophets of the return of Israel to Zion at a certain point. Here you see at the top of your GEULAH terms, Itchalta de GEULAH. He felt that 1740, when he was 20 years old, the Gaon of Vilna, at 1740, which is called dawn of the sixth millennium. Oops. That 1740 was the beginning of the Itchalta de GEULAH, the beginning of the redemption process. It was the there's a few other terms here also that are pertinent. Let me see what I have here. The Ketz HaMegula, the revealed end, is another term here, which is down here on 7. And Ikvot de Mashiach, which is up there at the top, Ikvot Mashiach or Ikvot de Mashiach. All three terms start at 1740, according to the system of the Gra, when he was 20 years old, when he tried to get to Eretz Yisrael for the first time, which he was unsuccessful in doing. So he himself was unsuccessful, but Rav Hillel Rivlin, the son of Binyamin, learned the Gra for 17 years. He was second cousin. Binyamin was the first cousin. And when the time came, he came with a number of others. And the stories that are written, we have testimonies of what they went through as they tried to get here. They started in Sfat, they came to Tiberia, eventually came down to Hebron and Yerushalayim, the 4 holy cities of the land. Simultaneously, the students of the Baal Shem Tov came. They didn't have any contact with each other, so it's not as if they spoke with each other and had SMSs with each other. The Baal Shem Tov said to his students, "Get to Eretz Yisrael." The Gaon of Vilna independently said, "Get to Eretz Yisrael. This is the place to be." And the date to be here, even though 1740 is dawn of the 6th millennium, it's dawn of the 6th day of creation, 1740 a major transition point, 1840, the date that the Zohar gives for the opening of the gates of wisdom above and the opening of the well springs of wisdom below, which we interpret, most everybody across the board interprets that the opening of the well springs of the heavenly floodgates, based on the whole idea of Noah, that the water came from above and from below, that the opening of the supernal heavenly ones is the flowing down of the deepest secrets of the Torah, called Razeh Torah, the secrets of the Torah, in Aramaic, Razin Deoraita, the same concept, but in Aramaic. And that simultaneous to that would be an opening of the well springs of wisdom from below, which would be the human knowledge, and this comes out basically the technological revolution starting in 1810, and getting steam up, quote unquote steam engine. By 1840, it's already well underway. What did you want to say? Somebody had a question there also.
Science. Thinking.
Yeah, technology and science. Yes.
I have a question about Jacob Frank. Was he influenced by the date of 1740, or was he already preaching his messianic teachings at this particular time? I know he's somewhere in the 18th century, but I'm not sure when. I'm not
on that page right now. I can't respond even about Jacob Frank, of the Frankists, a false messianic movement. Okay, so maybe a little bit more of history is that we have this powerful teacher, mentor, who gave messages to people and gave them their ye'ud, he told them their destiny. He would very often tell somebody to make a list of the gematrias of seven gematrias of their name. The example is Yosef ben Yaakov will have a certain gematria. Yosef ben Rachel will have another gematria. Yosef ben Yaakov ben Yitzhak will have a third gematria. Yosef a Tzaddik will have another gematria. So a person, for instance, anybody here can give 7 gematrias of the various different combinations of their names with their parents' names and their grandparents' names, including their last name and sometimes even their vocation. We have now a program that we can input gematrias, and what he did without a gematria program, that he would find the same gematria of those 7 gematrias in the Tanakh. And I call it plugging a person into the power book. Plugged into your verse or your verses, and that empowers you to play your role in this unfolding messianic drama, which, as we'll see later on, as we've mentioned before, is the Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David drama. So he was very, very practical in giving people a mission, giving people a sense of destiny. That is, in a sense, what empowered them when they came to Israel, and they faced such tremendous obstacles, and many died in plagues and stuff. It was like really hard. But that's what gave them the power, is their belief in the vision that this man had brought down, that it was really the time to come back to Israel, to break through all of the blockades. So In Jerusalem, the main leaders of the old Yishuv, the main leaders of the original before Zion, before the Zionist movement from Russia, the secular Zionist movement, the main leaders were the students of the Gaon of Vilna. They all had copies of Kol HaTorah, and it was as a Shulchan Aruch, as an actual guide to how to live in Eretz Yisrael, to do what needs to be done in order to accelerate, to hasten, to bring the GEULAH, the Karevet HaGeulah, to bring, to become receivers of the redemption light. Eventually, it goes that Hillel Rivlin's son, I forget the names exactly, but his son, his grandson, and his great-grandson all continued in this and became Magidim. They became teachers and lecturers in Jerusalem. One of them was built outside of the walls of the old city, built 7 different neighborhoods. He would go out of the walls of the old city. He lived there alone, sometimes for 2 years, up to 2 years at a time, until other people came and started living around him. Then he'd move and he'd leave there and he'd go and he'd build another place. This is an amazing thing at the time because marauders were the call of the day. There was nowhere you could be safe. You had to carry a gun, you had to ride a horse, you had to know what you were doing, because otherwise your life was in danger. It was a very, very exciting time to live, like really hard. So that's a little bit of the history. This is one of those, Nachlaot is one of those communities that was built, one of the 7 communities built by this Rav Yosh. I think his name was, I forgot his first name. They're all, I could look it up, but Rav, one of those. Then if,
Moshe.
what?
Could it be Moshe again? I think it might be a Moshe.
It could be a Moshe. And then finally in 1940 and 1967, no, 48. This version of this, which is a reduced version of the original of Kol HaTorah, was by Shlomo Zalman Rivlin. I'm not really good on dates, but he published it in a limited edition, 100 copies. And what we have now is from probably his son or grandson, Rav Yosef Rivlin. And we had three people published it in 1967. One was Rabbi Chaim Friedlander, the Mashgiach Ruchani, the spiritual guide of Panovich Yeshiva, Rabbi Dessler. He created what's called the Vad Lahafatzat, the guild for the dispersion or the dissemination of Kol HaTorah. Then we have another Kol HaTorah here, which was put out by Rav Yosef Rivlin, one of the family, and another one by Reb Menachem Kasher in a big book that he called something, but which was very Zionistic because he saw that this book was this Chazon Tzion stuff and everything. So the Zionist in Menachem Kasher felt this is like incredible to strengthen the whole idea of the state of Israel. But the Haredi community went against Menachem Kasher and said he misused this book for his own agenda. So these two were more careful, and they just put out exactly what the book was. Okay, I mean, I'm probably driving you crazy, but this is just the history.
No, this is fascinating.
So it's a delicate subject, how to bring the GEULAH, right? How to be part of the acceleration process. The two main principles.
Yosef Rivlin.
Yosef
Yosef Rivlin.
Rivlin is the builder of the communities?
Yeah.
Okay. look at the GEULAH terms that you have. Anybody doesn't have one, they were passed out at the beginning. I have a few more. Okay. Here's.
Can I ask about the first term?
Yeah. Here's four more. There's one. Dorit back there wants one. Yes.
I've heard that people saying that the first term doesn't have a source.
It's Chalta the GEULAH.
That it's just something that, like,
It's all over the place.
what?
Yeah. Well, the first place is more in Megillah, but it's used. I actually have a little list of sources that I made last week that I can show you, but it's a real term. Ikvot Mashiach, as we've spoken about, the heels, the footsteps, which we call the incremental steps leading up to the Messianic age, is called Mashiach. We mentioned that there's a source in Kol HaTorah where he says that ikvot is connected to the word roundabout, circumscribing, to go around something, la'akof, even though it's a pay at the end and not a beit. To go around about a seemingly meandering process of history towards the goal of history. We mentioned that very upset with Yaakov when Yaakov stole his blessing and stole his firstbornship, the Bechor and the Bracha, the same letters, Bechorah and Berach. That Yaakov stole it from Esau. That's what he felt, and he said, "Vayakbeni ze pa'amayim." That's why his name is Yaakov, because he stole, he fooled me, he outwitted me, he outsmarted me, he deceived me. So we brought the source from the Kol HaTorah that deceiving the forces of evil is very important. I sent you a piece of chapter 9 of my spiritual technology about the scapegoat on Yom Kippur and the parable of the Midrash, and the Zohar uses it for how Hashem utilizes deception in order to fool the Sitra Achra, the system of evil, to make a cover-up for the GEULAH process, to make things happen on the outside, so things going wrong, people doing everything wrong in the whole world, and then behind the scenes, building up the Messianic light as much as possible. So this is very interesting thing of deception. We did discuss it already. I'm not going to go into it right now, but it's on the previous classes. So that's Ikvot Mashiach, a very powerful term, and we're in it. We brought a little diagram that we use of a body. The idea that history is a torso all the way down to the feet. We're in the feet of history now. It's a very famous thing. Our souls, it's a play on words, but we are the souls of the feet of the body of history, right?
Can we differentiate Chavlei Mashiach to Ikvos Mashiach?
Really, they're almost, each one has its own set of associations, but they all come together in this system. So Chavlei Mashiach, which is down in number 21, is very close to the Ikvot Mashiach concept. Chavlei Mashiach, we'll see in the writings of Rav Kook, is not only the birth pangs of Mashiach. I mean, in the Zohar, and his Pirush in the Zohar goes deeply into this in 3 places. I hope to be able to share it with you. What's that?
No, all of a sudden noise. Hearing.
Okay. The Chavlei Mashiach, the birth pangs of the Mashiach, goes very deeply. Rabbi Nachman also, the Balatanya, all of them go very deeply into the idea that the redemption will be a birth, that history is a pregnancy, the redemption is the birth, right? History is also nighttime, and redemption is dawn, and the day that comes after dawn is the next world, is the world to come. So nighttime flowing into dawn, and then flowing into the next epic of post-history, the Messianic age, is a very important metaphor. He explains in the Zohar why Shachrit is called Shachrit. Alot Shachar translates basically the rising of the dawn, but what's going on? And it's also that Shachar is from the word Shachor, black. So there's this famous concept, right, called the darkness before the dawn. What exactly happens why is it dark before the dawn? And why in the Messianic process, the closer that we get, the harder it gets. Just like in birth and in pregnancy, the birth pangs get harder. So also in the metaphor of night flowing into day, just before dawn is Shachar, is the Shachor. What happens is the earth is here, the horizon is over the eastern horizon. Below the eastern horizon is the sun, from our point of view. The sun is starting to come up. When it reaches a certain point below our horizon, it's the diagonal light of the sun shoots up above the sky where we are, and all of a sudden, the stars that we were looking at all night get blackened out because the light of the sun diagonally shoots up, and just like in a city, you see less stars than you see in the desert. So the light of the sun coming up from below the horizon is enough to darken the sky. It gets darker literally before the dawn. So that symbolism is extremely important. And it's down at the bottom of the page, there's a little footnote. Again, this is like going to be filled in. And the bottom of the page is a footnote to entry number 25 called Kima Kima. Kima Kima is an expression from the Gemara in Yerushalmi, Brachot, page 4b. Rabbi Chia, Rava, Rabbi Shimon ben Halafta, Havu Mahalchin, Bahadak Bik'at Aravel, Bikritzta, Vira'u Ayelet Shachar. Bless you. Shabaka Ora. So these three rabbis were walking in the valley next to Mount Aravel. Anybody ever been on Mount Aravel? It overlooks the Kinneret. It's a magnificent mountain. You have to, in order to get there nowadays, you have to go up above the city of Tiberia, or if you're coming from Yerushalayim, it's on the way. Before you go down to Tiberia, you make a left turn if you're coming from Yerushalayim, and you go to the top, you go to basically the top of Mount Aravel, and you look down at the basin, which is the Kinneret. And so there were three rabbis walking in the valley right beneath Aravel, and they saw the Ayelet Shachar. They saw the dawn. This is also called Venus. Is also the dawn star. What's it called? Not dawn star. It's called morning star. Because that's one of the last things you can see in the night. All the smaller planets and stars disappear, but Venus stays there because the light of the sun coming up from up below is not enough to black out Venus until the last minute. And Shabaka Ora, that its light was shining. Amar Rabbi Chia Rabba. It's Rabbi Chia Rabba. It's not three rabbis. It's two rabbis. Rabbi Chia Rabba, the great Rabbi Chia, said to Rabbi Shimon ben Halafta, Kachi geulatan she'Yisrael, such will be the redemption of Israel. B'tchila kima kima, at first it will be la'at la'at, shweya shweya, be very, very slow, almost imperceptible. It'll be very dark, and it'll start getting light, just like, for instance, now, this morning at 5:25, it's still dark. But by 5:31, a whole change took place. You don't know those things if you're sleeping. That's the best time of the day to be awake. You're going to get up at 4:30 to appreciate it, though. Okay. So it says here, Kima Kima Lat Lat, Kol ma shehi olechet, hi rabba ve'olechet. The more that the dawn rises, the sun starts rising up towards the actual horizon. It gets greater and greater until it actually peaks, and you see the sun at the horizon. Most people daven nets. At that moment, the top of the sun, the top of the orb of the sun, peaks up above the horizon. Some people wait, according to the Rambam, until the entire orb of the sun. It's another 5 minutes. So that's why most Minim at the Kotel will cease, they'll be silent at the moment that the sun peaks up above the horizon. Rav Darzi, my Rebbe, used to wait, I mean, it's not 3 minutes. And whatever, that's what he did, because he held by the Rambam that it entire orb of the sun above the horizon, that's net. Whatever the case, this is their famous thing, and he goes on and says, "My Tama, why? How do we know this? Ki esheb b'choshech Adonai or li," because the verse in Micha, a very important verse for the GEULAH, that even though I sit in darkness, Hashem is my light. So darkness is before dawn, is the pregnancy, and the light is what we're all waiting for, basically. So this is so delicate stuff. Like, we are born in this generation, the feet of the soul, the soles of the feet of the body of history. We're connected all the way up to the top. We're sparks of the great souls who have lived before us. There's a bifurcation so that every generation there's more of us. It breaks down into millions and billions until there are more. But there's basically, it all roots up one single soul, the soul of Adam. We are all sparks of the collective soul of Adam. And that soul of Adam came down, was sent down here to live through history and through the darkness of history and the drama of history. And so these masters, Rabbi Nachman, the Gra, the Baal Shem Tov, the Ramchal, the Balatanya, they're the Orach Chaim, like one after the other, back to the Ari, back to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, back to Yeshayahu and Yechezkel and Yirmiyahu, back. That's what they passed down to each other, is that history has a rendezvous at the end, and they were all part of this amazing drama. And each one in every generation had to do what they could within that generational consciousness to advance the story and the drama of the Mashiach. Yes.
You said that we are all sparks of the soul of Adam Arishon.
Yeah.
It's the same as saying we are all the sparks of the Shekhinah.
So there's a concept called Knesset Israel. The Knesset Israel is the Shekhinah, and it's also the children of the Shekhinah. There's a beautiful relationship between us and our Ima, so to speak. Our Ima is the Shekhinah. Knesset Israel means variously the community of Israel, the totality of the souls of Israel. In Psalm 113, the Shekhinah is called Em Habanim Smecha, the joyous mother, the joyous mother of the children. On Shabbat especially, she's called Chakal Tepuchin Kadishin. Chakal, the field or the orchard of holy apples, or the holy orchard of apples. And why? Because in the orchard of apples there are many trees, and on each tree are many apples. And so even though the symbolism might sound strange to you, but it's all symbolism is by us is one of the most incredible worlds of the prophetic images that are given to us. Is so the image of a field or an orchard with many trees, each one with thousands of apples on them, is like a mommy with a lot of babies inside of her. And she's called Chakal because Chakal is Gematria 138, and it's 3 divine names. So that when she's filled with all this shefa from above, she becomes pregnant with light, and she gives over that light and gives extra souls to us, extra soul levels to each one of us down here on Friday night. I don't know if that was very clear, but the Shekhinah is our Ima. We're all part of this thing. Adam Arishon is a different concept. It would be interesting, how you understand each one on its own, so to speak. You can make connections afterwards, but each one has to have its own story. Let me stop for a moment. What's going on here, right? Anybody want to? First of all, I didn't prepare all day. I was doing one of my. It finally came down, a whole thing that was waiting for weeks. I had to be very patient with these things. It's not up to me. And so the last part, I made this page. And I wanted to come in and say, hey guys, let's talk about this in your language. Let me share with you by you sharing with me. What do you want to know about? If I can help at all. We're going to go and swim these waters. I don't know how it's going to happen. I know that these books are difficult. They are demanding. They have a, as I've said 2 or 3 times already, they're in order to plug each one of us into a higher destiny. At the same time that we remain ourselves, so that it doesn't become an ego trip, but we remain ourselves. I am me, you're you, but we also become part of Klal Yisrael, the totality of the souls of Israel, the Knesset Yisrael. We start playing our parts in the divine drama. Our consciousness becomes connected to Ima, right? And by virtue of that, to the entire system of souls who have come down to this planet, who have taught these things, who have passed these teachings on. So that's a major thing. That's a major thing to think of. So that when each one of us prays, we're going into that like beam of light, so to speak. Beam me up, right? What's his name? Scotty. Beam me up, Scotty. So you're going into davening, you step into the davening, and you're in the GEULAH light. There's a whole thing about the davening in the morning that we say just before the Amidah. Baruch Atah Hashem, Ga'al Yisrael. You are the Redeemer. You've redeemed Israel. And so what the Ari does there at that very moment is you enter into a very deep place, whether you know it or not. That's what it's about. It's like most of this has been not been told. It's sowed. One of the conditions for bringing the Mashiach is the revealing of the Sodot, of the mysteries of the Torah, which are not just things that have nothing to do with us. It's things that have to do with every one of us is doing. However religious you are, it's how we live our lives. And so the Sod level of how we live our lives has to be revealed as a part of the Tata, the awakening from below that prepares us for the flow, the downflow, the influx of higher energy. And the more we prepare ourselves, the more the energy comes down, and the more the energy comes down, the more we can prepare ourselves. It just it's unstoppable. There's no greater force on the planet Earth but our souls. All of the countries of the world, all of the nations of the world, all of the leaders of the world are like mice compared to this incredible system that the prophets revealed to us, called GEULAH. The process towards the end of history, the rendezvous at the end of history that Hashem wants us to participate in, to become consciously aware of. And if the Jewish people are totally asleep and are playing political games, or this game or that game, or I can make up new halachas or this and that, because there's nothing else for us to do, and Judaism is not enough for me, so I have to change the halacha. So that's because there's a vacuum of meaning in people's lives. Instead of changing halacha, let's change our consciousness. Let's go up to the next level on the mountain. That's what these teachings are about. I actually said I was going to ask, tell me what you wanted to hear about, so I'll stop. I will. Yes.
So, with all the things that are going on in the world, like in recent times, that everybody is so upset about, we really have a clear understanding of what's going on, not a clear understanding, but we're beginning to understand something. I think should really be really happy to see these things unfolding, because it seems like the darker it gets, the closer we are. And what we're really waiting for is that dawn, right? I mean, yes. So the darker things are, we shouldn't be scared or freaked out over it. We should know that this is what's supposed to be happening now.
Great question. If, as we've tried to say here, so as we should be happy, the worse things get, the more the ikvah the Mashiach get complex and the world starts to go downhill, we should be ecstatic about this, because it means that we're getting closer to the redemption. And it's true, except the fact is that we're human, and beings we don't want suffering. And our prayers have to be that it comes with kol birachamim, that Hashem should bring the redemption with mercy, and there should be the least amount of suffering possible, and that we should be able to explode spiritual neutron bombs and not chas v'shalom anything that will cause damage or harm or death, God forbid, on a mass scale. That's the stakes. That's the stakes of the game, is that we have the powerful bombs, but they're not bombs that kill. Our soul, what this tries to give us is access to the power, the potential of who we are. The most powerful force on planet Earth, the souls of Israel. And the souls of Israel doesn't mean just Jews. It includes all mankind. Anybody who wants to ignite the spark of their godly soul within them becomes bonded with the Jewish people, and all of us together become Yisrael. And there is a thing that everything gets lifted up, that we become the Kohanim, and all of the nations of the world who are left, I'm sorry to say, those who are left will become Yisrael. Right? We become Kohanim, they become Yisrael. Yisrael is a concept. It's not something you force people to do, force conversion to other religions, but we've never forced anybody to become Jewish. We've never killed people in order that they die by the sword if you don't become Jewish, right? That's all distortions upon distortions, falsehoods that are perpetrated in the name of religion. Anyway, we are happy, but on the other hand, that we're living now, but Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said in the Zohar, woe to those who are living in that generation, those who are living in that generation. Since one part of me is crying and one part of me is ecstatic. We can't get away from it. There's a tension.
It's scary.
It's scary. Liad.
You've spoken, first of all,
Who's first?
You've used the word Ima a number of times, and I just wanted to say one.
Why don't I use Abba? I've used
from Rosh Hashanah to today, it's 42 days, which is Ima. So we're on the nights of Ima.
But from Rosh Hashanah till now, it's the 42nd day.
So it's Ima.
So Rachel's your side.
Right, so that's Im, the yesterday. So I wanted to ask what your thoughts on a certain thing, and that is, if you look at they would say Moram, Rabbi Nachman, and a number of other sources, they'll say stay away from secular wisdom. It's just going to pollute your mind in a way. And at the same time, we have these idea of the seven wisdoms that the Kol Torah elaborates on. How do we reconcile?
They distinguish between, so good question, Liad. I cut you off, but basically, if Rabbi Nachman and others say stay away from secular wisdom, so how do we reconcile with learn the seven wisdoms? And the answer is what I gave before: is philosophy is the problem. Is from Aristotle onwards, and even the obviously there's some good things in Immanuel Kant, and maybe a little bit in Schopenhauer, but generally speaking, they're blind men groping in the dark. The Torah is a system of light. Most humanity does not know that the great names of the Torah, the Gra, the Ramchal, the Or HaChaim, etc., are our substitute for Nietzsche and the others. All of them had something to say and important, and it could be that those who really are grounded in Torah very well could go into those systems and find a lot of good things. But generally speaking, the problem with Rabbi Nachman is not wisdom per se, but philosophy. You can check me out. And I can bring you sources from the Tzaddik Cohen also, that the Torah, when you're grounded in the Torah, the deep secrets of the Torah, then everything starts to make sense and fall into place. All the wisdom of mankind. So what Mashiach does, basically, is Mashiach brings together the deepest knowledge of mankind with the Torah, or quantum physics, relativity, etc., with the Torah of the Ari, with the secrets of the Torah. The Mashiach teaches that everything that Klal Yisrael was learning now was only an infinitesimal amount of what the Torah is about. There's much, much more. And what the scientists were learning, unbeknownst to themselves, was Torah, psychology, microbiology, the secrets of nature, and into the cell, into the atom, and into the quarks, and up into the astrophysical. That's what the Ari is doing in spiritual terms, is what the scientists are now doing in physical terms, and the Mashiach brings them together, the confluence of the 7 wisdoms together with the Torah, the Etz Chaim and the Etz Hadat. So they were profound thinkers, and sometimes that's my answer to you, okay?
I got you.
Yeah.
Over there.
Over there.
So, how tall was it going to get? Because it seems that people should know better. I mean, a lot of the Fruma Olam is committing some of the worst stuff is coming out of the people involved in Torah. So I just don't understand how we're supposed to be dealing with that. You know, like what happened, like things that happened last week, bad things, really. And you're looking at people that should be the ultimate, and people who are descendants of some of the great people here are now seemingly doing extremely wrong things. So I just don't, for me, that's like probably the hardest thing for me to deal with in this time period.
Oh yeah, how can I even respond to you? So some of the things that are done in the name of
Torah.
It's not the Hall of Fame, it's the Hall of Shame. It's people who are wearing the clothes, behind clothes in order to do the opposite of what the Torah is about. It's an incredible system. Jewish people are on a very low level. We all know this. It's very embarrassing. Who are we to tell anybody what to do? The world, the nations of the world, to be a light to the nations. We better be a light to ourselves first. There's so much stuff that's going on that is incense. Makes you want to give up. Somebody could say, you know, when I first was Choser B'Tshuvah, I first came into this place, I saw some really nice Shabbos meals, and it was like, wow, that was what I call the Avraham stage. It was everything, every Jew was shining, and their families and the children were getting along with the parents. And wow, what a thing. I never had this before. I really love this Jew. Then there's the second stage, the Yitzhak stage, where everything turns off, all the darkness comes in, and you see people who really are, and all that's wrong. It hurts. We want to get to the Yaakov stage, to the Israel stage. We want to get. You have to go through this negative stage to see the actual reality of the Jewish people. Behind that, as Rabbi Nachman did in his story of the 7 beggars, there were 7 beggars. Each one had a different infirmity. The Jewish people have tremendous goodness, but we are on the outside, and who knows? I'm trying to do my best with. Is on the outside we are sick, but if we can only heal that and get to that greatness within us. It's a better way even for me to say it. I don't know if I have the koach right now, but the 7 beggars are an amazing story about something that's wrong. The beggar who can't speak, the beggar who can't hear, the beggar who can't see, the beggar without arms, the legs, and there's 2 missing. The hunchback is the 6th, and I always forget the other one. The neck. Hunchback maybe. Whatever the case, Rabbi Nachman says in his last story, he says, "Hachen v'chashivut alchu la'umot ha'olam." that the beauty and the importance of Am Yisrael, of the Jew, has been taken and co-opted by the nations. And in the story, he basically is working on the same theme, that there's something wrong here. But inside, there's something so good. So I want to find that goodness. I want to use these teachings here to accentuate the good, not to hide from the bad. As I said before, referring to a certain group of people in America, because there's a vacuousness in Jewish life, so they want to make up all kinds of things and change things. So in the Haredi world, in the religious world, there's also a vacuum. And it's a very sad thing, because those of us who have come in from the outside, we look at them and say, like, how could you do this? How could you denigrate what the Torah is all about, either for money or for sex or for whatever sick things that people are doing. That's all I can say right now. It's sad. How to tie it on to this, basically.
Is it like the klipa? Is it like the sitra achra? Is it like the
Erev
is it
Rav.
the
Erev
Erev
Rav.
Rav? Every person's doing the wrong thing. Is it Erev Rav? Is that how you're supposed to be looking at it?
No, as I said last week, and I said I would eventually, this number 22 is Erev Rav, Erev Zeir.
That's me.
Erev Rav and Erev Zeir. I'll bring in the source for this, I promise you.
Well, wait, is it possible that this is one of those distractions? That it's not really.
Okay, but a distraction is that's hurting people's lives, that's hurting kids, whether it's pedophilia or whatever, is not. We can't have it. We can't have it. We have to become fighters for righteousness. We have to be able to spot something when it's wrong and call it out. And who are we? Because we're only what's called Baal Tshuvas, right? So to the Baal Tshuva. So it's a hard position to be in. Yes.
Rabbi,
Tell
can
me.
you give us an example, even a little one, in terms of a practical action of some kind, in terms of preparing for the light? Because when the light increases, the disturbance increases as well. So it's part of the problem in a way. So in terms of preparing for it, a small little, to make it a little bit more concrete.
Is asking me to give a kind of a practical suggestion in order to be able to handle the situation.
Yeah, if there's
the
more
difficulties, the
I
more
can
light
have
that's coming in.
tremendous insight, but on the other hand, there are also very strong downturns and downfalls. So, is it just a kind of just being aware, and that's what's important, that this is all part of this process, and asking lots of questions and see what comes in, or is there something that's more practical to do? It's what we know in terms of the Kadesh, our lives, everyone in his own way and in his own pace and his own, but connecting it in thought and in awareness to the GEULAH process.
I have a few things in mind to say to you, but it's still a hard question to answer. It's a little bit hard for me
In
to answer.
time, during the year, I think we'll be getting the
Let me
answer.
read with you this page 181, which is the first page of Kol HaTorah in the books, and if you're next to you, or even 3 people or 4 people at the same time.
181?
Each chapter, I have it in my book also. I have a different translation. It was before I met this man. I've been working on Kol HaTorah since 1990, and a few others have been doing it. Rabbi Pinchas Winston knows about it. He's very, very active in Kol HaTorah ideas. All of a sudden, maybe a year and a half ago, we met Shalom Brown. We heard about him. You met him. And he said, here, this is a book I've been working on for a number of years. And it turns out that he translated this whole book and knew nothing about me. He quotes inner space in the footnotes around 100 times. So when I called him from Sutton, it was like really a special thing. I still, again, we haven't met in person yet, but whoa. Like he used inner space a lot to back up things that he said about Kabbalah. But his work with Kol HaTorah is really a precious gem. He put everything into it, a heart and soul. So my work, which was a partial translation of Kol HaTorah, is in my book dedicated to Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David. And so therefore I might have little issues with how he translated, but the point is that he did a great job. So let's look at what he says. Every chapter has a chapter contents, an introduction. Our mission is the mission of the Vilna Gaon, the light of the Mashiach ben Yosef for the final generation. That's what it says, and I take it serious. I just like to add that the Ramchal, Rabbi Nachman, the Baal Tanya, and a lot of them, many hundreds, were also Mashiach ben Yosefs. The Gra was a very important Mashiach ben Yosef. He to disseminating this Torah. Each one of them did in his own way. Maybe more than all the others. And this particular niche is the Gaon of Vilna. But again, he's not alone. According to the Gaon, Rabbi Eliyahu, his name was Eliyahu ben Shlomo Zalman, all of the ikvot, the itchalta, here he mixes the two, the ikta, or the ikvot of the itchalta, the footsteps of the beginning period, the footsteps of the beginning of the redemption period, which includes the ingathering of the exiles, the kibbutz luyot, and the settlement of the Holy Land. Now, the settlement of the Holy Land was not a reality, not a possibility back in 1750, 1760, 1770. This was a very hard place to come to, as we said before. So the vision, the Chazon Tzion, was a very, very dreamy kind of thing. Like, how are you going to do that? It's like, you can't go to Eretz Yisrael. Either you get killed by the Bedouins or whatever, the Turks, or what? You don't just go from Europe, from North Russia, Belarusia, which is Shklov, which is due north. You don't go from there to Eretz Yisrael and think you're just going to have a nice time. It was so hard. But this text includes the empowerment of what it needs for people to actually do it. That's hard to give over, but that's what I wanted to say. According to the Gaon, all of the ikvot the itchalta, the footsteps of the beginning redemption period, which includes in other words, the footsteps include the process of the ingathering of the exiles and the settlement of the Holy Land, all of the general rules and specific details until the very final end, and all of them from A to Z, all of the ikvot Mashiach, all of the incremental steps and all that needs to be done are all part of the mission of the first Mashiach, Mashiach ben Yosef. So he's defining for us here that Mashiach ben Yosef, we talked about it last year, at the end of last year in our course of creation, revelation, redemption. That's how we made a decision to do redemption this year. Is that the Ramchal says a very clear thing that Adam HaRishon was supposed to be Mashiach ben David. And he was supposed to bring the world from what I call a level of translucent to transparent. The world was like sunglasses. You could see God, but it was a little bit slightly tinted. He was supposed to bring the world to total transparency to reveal God in the world. Instead, he brought the world down into opaque. Now it became much harder. So he created the necessity as the Mashiach, the potential Mashiach ben David, he created the necessity for a first Mashiach, an initial Mashiach who would come and bring the world back to what it needs to be, or what it was when Adam received it, so that Adam, as Mashiach ben David, can then continue the work that he's supposed to do and finalize it. So this brings in the concept of the double work that's needed now after the sin of Adam, which makes necessary the existence of a Mashiach who will come beforehand. Now, in the prayers, there's a story with the Ari that the Ari took his students to the kever of Shammai and Avtalion. That's right, basically a half a mile away down from Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Meron. The kever what did I say? Avtalion no, not Shammai and Hillel, but Avtalion and Shemaiah and Avtalion. Shemaiah, Avtalion. And when he was there, he said to them, especially Rav Chaim Vital, daven that the Mashiach ben Yosef shouldn't die. So it's very interesting that Rav Chaim Vital says that shortly after that the Ari died. And he says, we didn't understand what he was saying when he said it. He never mentioned Mashiach ben Yosef before, so how were we to know? And he told us that when we were there at the kever, he said, when you daven in the Amidah, in the bracha that starts Tishkon, or in the Ashkenazic version, Vili Yerushalayim, Ircha. What's the nusach? Vili Yerushalayim, Ircha Tashuv, V'Tishkon B'tocha. Tishkon B'toch Yerushalayim Ircha. So the Ari told them at that time that when you say V'chisei David Abdecha, and the throne of David your servant, V'chisei David Abdecha Me'erat Tachin B'tocha, establish it soon in its midst, in the midst of Jerusalem. Establish the throne of soon Jerusalem. The Ari said, intent, it's referring to Mashiach ben Yosef. So it was very strange. Well, it just said Mashiach, it said the Kisei David, the throne of David. Why would you think here of Yosef? So what do you see? What does it mean, Kisei David, the throne of David? The Kisei of David, not David. The one who's going to be the Kisei, that is to say the chair, that is to say the front runner, that is to say the process that's going to bring in David is called Kisei David. Pray for Mashiach ben Yosef that he shouldn't die.
It's always when we say Kisei David, that's what we're
That's what he says. So I have a whole chapter in my book about it. Yeah, the twin messiahs, and that's like it starts with that quote dedicated to Mashiach ben David. I can print a few up eventually and bring them in. I hesitate, but in the meantime, I can send PDF to anybody. Yeah.
Ben Yosef is kind of like the base on which Mashiach ben David.
The basis, right? Good.
What's that base composed of? What did he have to achieve
right.
to open that next step?
Right. So that's what the Kol HaTorah is about. It's like a very practical Shulchan Aruch. It lays out the steps of what's needed physically and spiritually in the spiritual life of the Jew: prayer, Torah learning, etc. How to intend certain things, what to learn, how to learn, and then what to do physically. Among the things physically is the planting and the planting. What did I say? The word I wanted to use. The working the land of Israel. Because there's something in the Gemara in Sanhedrin called Ketz HaMeguleh, which is one of the terms here. The Gemara says that one of the signs of the revealed end, there's a mechuseh and a megula. Megula is the revealed end, which the Gra starts from 1740, and the Ketz HaMechuseh, the covered or the concealed end, is the Mashiach ben David. We don't know when it'll happen. During the Ketz HaMegula, the end time, which is revealed to us when things will start to happen and get quicker and quicker, when we can do things, one of the things we need to do is work the land of Israel. And that working of the land of Israel, as Rabbi Friedlander explains, is a physical action that arouses a spiritual, right? In other words, we're doing a physical action to arouse a spiritual influx. So this system it's systematic, it's consistent, it's coherent. It's not just work the land for the sake of the land. There's a whole spiritual thing. It goes to the prophecy of Ezekiel. When my people are about to come to the land of Israel, the mountains will give forth their fruits. So the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, I mean, I have all these sources written down, but the best I can do without that is that when the land starts to give forth of its produce, watch for the return of the exiles, because it's preparing for the return of the people. It's and in our tradition it's called GEULAH. So what was I saying?
With the early pioneers, then that whole drive when they came back to settle was really they were hatching on. They didn't maybe know it, but they were latching on.
Some knew and some didn't. Yeah,
motivate.
some knew and some didn't. I made a film once back in 1974 with a filmmaker named Dov Letterberg. God bless him. He lives in Sfad. He's an artist, and he made 2 films that I was in. One was The Turkey and the Prince. That my friend Yonatan White and myself, we just had on long johns. And we got under a table, and we played The Turkey and the Prince. But another film we did is we went to Petach Tikva, and I don't remember a long time ago what we did, how we did it, but somehow Dov was making a film of some of the original settlers who were students of the Gaon of Vilna who went to Petach Tikva. One of the gematrias of Petach is the gematria 999, Petach Tikva. It's one of those special gematrias of the Gra. That's why they called it Petach Tikva, which is from the prophet, the opening of the gate of hope. But malaria, like so many died, huge. But they gave their lives to clean it up and to make it into a city. And then, right, but most of them came to the cities, but some of them actually tried to work the land because it was part of the tzav, part of the command of the hour. I'm using my hands a lot, at least. I hope that helps. But okay, so again, so he's giving us through this book a picture of Mashiach ben Yosef, the first Mashiach, the Mashiach at the beginning, the one who has to that we become part of that soul of Mashiach ben Yosef by doing certain. He goes on. He says they come from the left side, meaning the quality of din during the awakening from below. So these are all catchwords. The left side as opposed to the right side. The left side is arousal from below. In order to arouse from the right, we have to arise, which is the way of Teva, the Derech HaTeva, the way of nature, the historical process within nature and within history. We do certain actions, and that arouses spiritual stuff from the right. And there's a verse that this is based on in Psalm 102. The Gra is totally connected with verses and with gematrias of verses, etc., like I said before. We'll get to that. Left side. And it's also called awakening from below. 3 basically associated concepts. Din is judgment. Awakening from below is that I awaken from below despite whatever obstacles and blocks I have in my life, but I say, Hashem, I want you in my life. I want to do the best I can. That's an awakening from below. It's a statement that I want to dedicate to this higher goal, to this higher destiny. That's an awakening from below. And then you wait a day, 2 days, 2 years, 3 years, and you're back. Wow, 3 years ago, I just made that statement, but now my whole life is different. How did that happen? Would it have been different if I hadn't made that statement? If I hadn't made my awakening from below? I don't know. But something about it tells me that this has happened to me. I wanted it. Right? Wanting, desiring is a very powerful thing. And the Gra gives a lot about how that works. Chefetz. He goes into the book of Ecclesiastes, where there's listed of L'kol zman v'chefetz tachat hashamayim. For everything there's time and a desire under the earth, under the heavens. So there's a whole thing here. I can't find it without. But Chefetz tahat hashamayim is desire under the heavens. Our desire starts from below, and we awaken and arouse desires that are higher than us, that have been there since the time immemorial, that are waiting for awakening from below. Oh, it's helping a little bit, really. This is like not normal to talk about these things. Okay, where are we holding? I can also sit back and say, tell me what you want to talk. Really, seriously, it's not. Yes.
No question.
Yeah.
So everything on earth is a physical manifestation of spiritual Shemayim.
Everything on earth is a physical manifestation of a spiritual something in heaven.
Yeah. So with the coming of the GEULAH, it's going to be Yaakov, or obviously Yaakov, Esav, and Ishmael, right? So who wins in the war between Esav and Ishmael?
Wait, so it's a complex question because Esav and Ishmael are very much a part of this system. Mashiach ben Yosef, verse in Ovadiah, who comes from Esav. This is a special verse there at the end of Ovadiah. It's a one-chapter prophet. And Yosef is the only one who can face Esav. David faces Ishmael.
Yosef faces Esav?
Yosef faces Esav, yes.
And David faces
Ishmael. But again, that's only a little piece of a bigger puzzle. What Mashiach, we already said last week that we can bring, eventually we'll see the source inside, that the Mashiach is really Moshe, with David at his right and Yosef at his left. The three together constitute the Mashiach. And Eliyahu Navi runs before them, the front runner. So the totality of the Mashiach is these three. We celebrate their passing at Mincha of Shabbat, where all three of them passed away. And we say 3 verses from Psalms. And the gematria of Moshe, Yosef, David is Vayetchanan, which is Tfilah. I can say right now, just out of memory, but it's 515. It is the essence of prayers that these three who passed away at the end of Shabbat, the highest level of Shabbat. But again, the real work of the Mashiach is the transformation of mankind and not the decimation of mankind. That's, again, like I said before, the stakes that we're dealing with here, is that we want to catch it before there's destruction. And therefore,
it's too late.
It's not too late.
I thought that if it was going to come with Rachamim, it was already too late. I thought that it was supposed to come 18 years ago, if it was whatever, 19 years ago, something like that.
Well, okay, so you just said
Natan.
Natan. So Natan's talking here from a place of knowledge, but it's a little bit incomplete. So I'll try and complete it. So Natan said that the GEULAH was supposed to come 18 or some odd years ago. We just need to say noon of the 6th millennial day. We are now at 1230. But why didn't it happen in 1990? That's one thing. And the fact that it didn't means that it's no longer possible to come to Rachamim, it's no longer possible to come with mercy. As Isaiah says, Berega katon, Berega katon, Azavtich, Berachamim gedurtzech. In a tiny moment, I abandoned you, and a tiny moment is all of history. But with Rachamim Gedulim, with great mercies, I will gather you. So, these other verses that we can bring to bear with Rachamim, please, Rachamim, maybe the time has passed. So, in answer to Natan, there's a very important verse that we've mentioned before. We have to really know this verse by heart. It's chapter 60 in Isaiah, the last verse. Katon yeh la'elef. The small one will become 1,000. V'tzair legoyatzum, and the young one will become a mighty nation. the small one will become 1,000. 1,000 represents back then that every gedud, every what do you call it, army unit had 1,000 men. Right? So an elef, but that's the pshat. But elef, as we know from the Gaon of Vilna, is the 999 steps of history that lead up to the 1,000. When Zeir Anpin, which is the historical process, which is 999 steps, leads up to the 1,000. So Hatseir, Hakaton Yele Elef, the small one will become 1,000. Hatseir Lagoyatsum, and the young one, which is really just the same metaphor in a different word, will become a mighty nation. Ani Adonai Be'ita Achishena. I, Hashem, will accelerate it, will hasten it. I, Hashem, Be'ita, in its time, Achishena, will hasten it. So the Gaon of that this seems to be, first of all, the Talmud in Sanhedrin 97 said that if we're worthy, Achishena, I will accelerate it, I will hasten the Geula. If not, if we're not worthy, Lo Zachu, if they're not worthy, it'll come in its time. So the Gaon of Vilna, where do I have this? Again, I have to do everything without books. The Gaon of Vilna was described by Reb Hillel Rivlin, the author of Kol HaTorah, as walking back and forth in his room with a stormy spirit, saying, there must be a third way. It's not just either or. Either we're worthy or we're not worthy. The simple meaning of the verse is, Be'ita Achishena, I will hasten in its time. In other words, a pure Achishena would be that we could jump history from any time, and we could jump over history, so to speak, and get to the final Geula, and not have to go through the whole bunch of stuff that we're going through. Be'ita would be that we have to go through the plodding donkey ride through canyon, slowly with Ferdy Griffey's music playing in the background. Oh my God, it's so slow until it gets to the end, and it'll be painful. And there's even the pamphlet I have from Rav Meir Kahana Zatzal. The last classes that he gave were about Mashiach ben Yosef before he was killed. He was a Mashiach ben Yosef, obviously, fighting for Russian Jewry, etc. He talks all about these things. I have a pamphlet with that. And wars. Be'ita is a bad. We don't want it to wait to the last minute that we're not worthy. We want to be worthy. The Gaon of Vilna said already in his lifetime that pure Achishena ain't going to happen. The jump start, going over all the difficulties, not going to happen. But we can have what's called Shtaim Shem Arba, which is a famous thing in the Gemara. There's many places in the Gemara where it says there's two that are really four. Beginning of Masechet Shabbat says Itziyot Shabbat Shtaim Shem Arba. There's two that are four ways. Two ways they are D'oraita, and two extra ways that are D'Rabbanan, of taking something out of a Rishut Yachid into the Rabim, and vice versa, Rabim to Yachid. Two on each. It's two, but they're really four, because each one has a subdivision. This concept becomes extremely useful, that even when polarities, that we have life and the tree of knowledge, there's a tree of life, and there's a tree of knowledge aspect of the tree of life, and the tree of life aspect of the tree of knowledge. It's very useful. We'll go into this. Or I'll send you what I've written about it. For our purpose right now, the Gaon of Vilna says there's a Be'ita Achishena. There's a possibility of a quickening of the Be'ita. We cannot have pure Achishena, but we can have that things will start faster and faster and faster, which is basically what has happened in the last 150 years, is that history is moving faster and faster and faster. That's how, and he bases Zohar that says that as we get ready for the 7th millennium, it's like a man getting ready on Friday afternoon to get into Shabbat. You got to do things faster and things faster and faster. That faster is that we're not jumping everything that has to happen, but everything that has to happen is happening faster. Things that happen in hundreds of years are taking decades, and things that happened in decades are taking now a year. And what happened to the year? They brought it out in 1990, and Russian communism fell in, what did it say? There was a Time magazine article. I should have kept the cover. This happened in 30 days. This happened in 30 minutes, right? It's getting faster and faster. There's one more important thing I wanted to say before I close this thought. Obviously forgot it. Is a really major thing that we'll see is the answer to those who say that the time has passed, there's no possible way anymore. No. The fact that things are moving faster. What I wanted to say is that another verse from Psalm 102 again is Ki ba moed, Shlomo's song, Ki va moed, the time is coming. So the GEULAH applied his working principles of how to work with verses, is that he said, just as we move towards the end time, which in this verse in Isaiah is called Ita, it's time. In Psalm 102, it's called Moed. The same thing called by two different names. In one, it's that it'll be in its time. And Moed is the Moed is coming towards us as we travel towards it. It's a really advanced thing that traveling towards the end time, it doesn't just stay stable, it comes towards us and time gets smashed. And things are happening faster and faster. It's the same idea. It's the best I can do right now to explain it without a text. It's very, very exciting that things getting faster and faster. Again, it does have the side effect of havoc, of unrest, of anti-Semitism on the rise, of a lot of negative things. But behind the scenes, as I said, the double kind of art is the thunderclouds here in front, and the sunny sky here, the dawn here. This new form of art where we just have just enough holes through the first outer layer to see the stuff behind, to get behind the scenes what is doing. Right? God consciousness is not a religious concept anymore. It's a development of human consciousness beyond what's limited until now, beyond the philosophies that made up to close God out because it was bothering them. It didn't allow them to do what they wanted to do, starting from Francis Bacon, right? Is now we can have power, and power means that we don't want anybody doing what we want to do. We want to master the world. That's what science was about, right? So letting God in now is the new call of the hour, but in a healthy way, in a holistic way, in a way that empowers human beings to become great. So, yes, what?
Does it connect to the first idea that Rob opened with tonight, this whole thing of like wanting from below and getting response from above? That there's I can't think exactly what Rob said, but it was like it had to do with like we push wanting something, and because we push towards wanting it, then there's a response. Like if a guy likes a girl, she gives him a smile, he feels okay, more secure to go ahead. Like, is there really some analogy with this awakening from below, awakening to above, and this Achishena thing?
Maybe that's what the Rebbe of Lubavitch was all about, in upping the rhetoric of Mashiach, to get the energy out there more, and talk about it more. And as more people talk about it more, it becomes more of a reality.
You hear? So the question is, what function does awareness play in desire? Awareness in this arousal of heavenly stuff. So Liad mentions the Lubavitcher Rebbe. In 1990, the Rebbe was pushing very strong. There were signs all over the place. Mashiach Ba, which was not really the best way to do it. He had a stroke and he couldn't speak after that. But he knew these dates. It was 1990, it was Tafshin Nun. This was part of the Kol HaTorah. He was very well aware of it. He had the tradition from the Baal Shem Tov, but he also was aware of the Kol HaTorah. And so it was very, very much a real powerful thing that happened then with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He had a stroke in the midst of this incredible Mashiach thing that was happening. But again, the healthy part of it is to become messianic, or I call mature messianists. Messianists mess up. To become messianic is usually to screw up your life. You can't think of anything else. Nothing else is important. You lose your job. You smoke this. You do that. Everything is Mashiach. That's not where we want to go. We want to be able to ground it here and have awareness being a major function of the process. Is awareness of God in my life. Awareness that Hashem is operating big time in the Middle East. Awareness that Hashem is operating big time on planet Earth. Korea, Iran, Syria, America, Texas, New Orleans, wherever you look, Hashem is working big time. How he's doing it is not always pretty. We have to pray that mankind does not have to suffer anymore. What?
Is hashtag Me Too part of that?
Mm-hmm.
The one?
He's not aware.
Educate
The whole
me.
thing that's going on in Hollywood with all this revealing of sexual misconduct on the part of big power players. It's a huge thing in the States right now. I would assume that's part of it too. It's like it's destroying everything.
Yeah,
Everything's
it's
getting
part of-
destroyed.
part
It's like
of
a
it all.
vortex of destruction going on. It's like a hurricane. It's unbelievable.
It's
Whatever
like-
hurricane that was in Sandy is now making its way through Hollywood through this.
It's like the Rav brought up in Sotah 49b about when Mashiach comes, incidents will increase and everything. It's just coming now to surface that you're seeing how the governments are corrupt and the people. It's just now it's out there, but it was always there. Now we're just seeing it more.
No, we're reading it.
Right.
So
And
quickly,
we have
wanted to
fake
be
media as
able to
well.
get through enough.
So we want to ask Hashem to give us good information. That's very important. Awareness is built on good information, good knowledge. And then the decisions that we make in our lives, the actions that we take should be with the highest intentions. Those of us who have come to Yerushalayim, what brought you here? Why did you come here? Think about it. Who brought you here? How did it happen? Where did the seed become planted? Who talked to you? When did you become aware of Israel? I became aware of Israel very late in my life. Very late in my life, after college. I literally did not have it in my consciousness. But once it got planted, I knew that eventually I would come here. I was drawn here like a magnet. That's what it's about. So whether you come here physically, like those of us sitting in this room, or you're spiritually connected, you are a little island of Eretz Yisrael in New York, a little island of Eretz Yisrael in Texas. Whether you're Jew or non-Jew, you can be an island of Eretz Yisrael because you want to connect to Hashem. That energy is amplifying on the planet. At the time that we're living in right now, at this very moment, it's still blanked out and blocked out and blacked out by negative stuff that's going on. But behind the scenes, this is growing. And that's what we said, again, the whole thing that I sent out about deceiving evil, giving evil a thing to think that it's winning. So, forgive me if this was like crazy. Every class is going to be different in a certain sense of how much we are able to grab onto this stuff, to actually the text inside. Obviously, the best learning situation in terms of actual takeaway is one-on-one. There are a lot of you here. There's an advantage to a group is that we form, in a sense, a group consciousness, and something of a light surrounds us and permeates us and lifts us up and allows us to get stuff that we might be able not be able to get in the same way. But on the other hand, for real takeaway, one-on-one is the best. Thinking through these things on your own, asking and writing down your own questions, sending them to me, calling me. We're trying to create, to generate something here that's a learning-oriented thing. We want to learn. We want to apply whatever we can to the best of our ability in a healthy, balanced way. We want to ask Hashem for the help that we need, for the healing that we need, for help in the process that we're all going through. So really, thank you so much.
If you're already in the mail list, remember we still make it.
Oh, this is the one. Oh, this is the other one. Where's the other one? Where's the attendance?
Eliyahu Hanavi, Eliyahu Tishbi, Eliyahu Hagiladi Bimeraya, O Eleinu Mashiach ben David Bimheraya, O Eleinu Mashiach ben David. Na 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 הנה אנוכי שולח לכם את אליהו הנביא. הנה אנוכי שולח לכם את אליהו הנביא. Na 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 לפני ביום השם הגדול והנורא, לפני ביום השם גדול והנורא, את אליהו הנביא. את אליהו הנביא. והשיב לבבות הבנים ולבנים על אבותם. והשיב לבבות הבנים את אליהו
Thank you. Have a good week.
Okay, if anybody else wants any of these, I can order more. But in the meantime, that's the end. This is mine.
How long will it take for them to come in? I'm only in Yerushalayim for a month.
Hopefully next week.
I will take a call. How much are they?
100 shekels.
And do you have to pay now or
Mine, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
100. But I'll bring it next week. Okay. I didn't answer all the questions, but whatever. Okay.